Hey, what's going on, y'all? So welcome back to another episode of Flight Academy. This is episode number 2, numero dos. And man, I want to get straight into it because, first of all, thank y'all for tuning in to even episode 1. I greatly appreciate it. But I want to tell you the truth, man. This podcast is my note to myself. And I am inviting you on the journey to my personal flight as I elevate, just even going past the different things that have tried to hold me back and hold me down. Ultimately, me holding myself back and ultimately me holding myself down. You all, we'll get into it more as we kind of get through the different episodes, but I want us to start this one off by first saying thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sharing it. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the support. I am greatly appreciative of it. So, moving forward, episode 2. So today, man, I wanted to share something that definitely was on my heart to share with you all. And as we're going through the different flights, you all are definitely going to get to know me because I want to be free through this journey. I don't want to sit there and be trying to hold anything back or trying to sound a certain way. I ain't trying to sound a certain way. I can only be myself. You feel me? So while we're on these flights, we definitely will have a good time. But for today, the title of this episode 2 is Accept Your Flight Plan. Accept your flight plan. Now, we're all familiar with this saying, the grass is always greener on the other side. We have heard that saying forever, it seemed like. And even though that saying, there's some truth to it, when it comes to like your flight plan, it's easy to become distracted by what you see on the other side of the fence, what you see in someone else's yard, as far as going back to the saying of the grass is always greener. Now, even though the grass is always greener, it's always greener compared to what? It's greener compared to your own grass? Well, that's actually true that it's greener compared to your own grass because you are taking more time to pay more attention to the grass that you're admiring rather than watering your grass. So the way I like to put it is the grass is always greener to the one that waters it the most. So if you're watering somebody else's grass by admiring it, it's definitely going to be greener. But if you take the time to actually appreciate the grass that you have on your side of the fence, you take time to tend to it, you take time to water it, you take time to manicure it, to make sure that there are no weeds growing up, to fertilize it, to do the things necessary, then your grass will definitely be greener. But it will never be greener the more you pay attention to someone else's grass. So, with all that being said, it's very much easy. That a right way of saying it. Anyway, it's very easy to find beauty in someone else or in something else other than your own. And the reason why it's easy is because we tend to diminish what we have. We tend to throw down what we got and who we are and what we're all about. And even some of the things that we're, let's say, called to, we tend to water those down or diminish it, as I was saying, because we're looking at somebody else. We're looking at what somebody else is doing. We're looking at somebody else's grass. And we don't need to do that. Why? Because like I said, if you appreciate what you have and you appreciate your portion, then you can multiply it, you can amplify it, you can share it, you can care for it, you can tend to it, and ultimately you can grow it. You can grow it. And that's what this is all about today. It's about accepting your flight plan. One thing about flying now, I ain't no pilot. Let me go ahead and say that. One thing about me, I love just being creative. And if you've known me, as I said in episode 1, the name of Flight Academy comes from or is an offset of a saying that I really go by, which was from Andre Benjamin, the one and only. And the quote is, we all kind of fly, just can't be scared to spread your wings. So in that, I ultimately got to the place of learning and understanding that the hardest part about flying is actually leaving the runway. That's the hardest part about flying, leaving the runway. It's not about really even being in the air. The hard part is getting off the ground. So in that, That's where Flight Academy came from. It came from the years of failing to launch, the years of constantly putting myself in the background, looking for any opportunity to hide out, looking for any chance I could find to be silent, to not be seen, to not be heard. And now this may be a shock to some of y'all, but this is a truth. And this is a truth because one thing with this podcast, this is just my opportunity to express, because it's more than a podcast when it comes to Flight Academy. It's so much more. And I can't wait to share all of the details, but we're starting it here because we just got to start. And the church said, amen. So with all that being said, as I was saying, Flight Academy definitely came from, I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with the movie Failure to Launch. I felt for years I had this failure to launch because I had all these ideas, but I would never actually get them off the ground. I had all these plans and all these just things, but I would leave them there. I wouldn't actually move in it. I wouldn't actually take the initiative or take the steps to actually get off of the ground. So this is, again, these are notes to myself when it comes to this podcast. But while I'm writing these notes and while I'm jotting these notes, I pray that they also encourage you, because I know that there's somebody else out there that's just like me, who has been like, you probably the most creative person that people around you know. You probably dope at everything you do, but for some reason you still find yourself putting yourself in the background. And that junk sucks. It sucks because you know that there's something on the inside of you that is calling, yearning, that's fighting to be heard, to be seen, to get out. But the more we keep pushing it to the back, we're doing not only ourselves a disservice, we're doing the world a disservice, we're doing everybody that we love a disservice, because we're not allowing God to fully be seen through the gifts that he placed on the inside of us. So, accept your flight plan. Now, as I was saying, I ain't no pilot. These are just titles. Don't judge me, okay? Just keeping it $150 with you. So, but when it comes to the flight plan, from my understanding, the flight plan is ultimately the way that you are, your overall plan in flight, as far as to get from A to B. We're going from Atlanta to New York. You have to have a flight plan. Similarly, if you're going from, I live in Atlanta. If you're going from Atlanta and you're saying, all right, I want to drive to Brazelton, Georgia, you got to have a plan on how you're going to get there, right? Especially if there's traffic, especially if there's certain things. In a lot of ways, we end up using GPS. We use different ways to navigate through, but still, you still have a flight plan. Now, when it comes to flying, your flight plan includes, I like to almost say like a birthing plan. Like you have everything that pretty much is prepared for things that are unpredicted, like things that you don't know is going to happen, things that you're not aware of. So you have that flight plan. I'm actually going to look it up, make sure I know what I'm talking about when it comes to the flight plan, because that's not, y'all get what I'm saying. The whole point is accept the plan that's been written for you. That's really where I'm getting at. So I'll look it up. Like I said, I'm really not going to cut up this episode, this podcast, because I want this to be as raw as possible, because y'all are hearing my thoughts. But all in all, when it comes to the flight plan, man, I've learned how important it is to fully accept and embrace your flight plan. So the reason why I started this episode off with talking about the other side of the fence and the fact that the grass is greener on the other side is simply because when we look at the plan that we have for our lives, that flight plan, we diminish it because we compare it to somebody else's plan. And really, we compare it to someone else's flight. We look at how somebody else is taking off. We look at how somebody else is how they're elevating, how they're ascending, how they're moving through. And we're like, man, they flying real nice. They look real good up in the sky. So then instead of us just taking flight ourselves, we now admire how they're moving. We admire the plan that they have. We admire the steps that they're taking. And in a lot of ways, and a lot of times, what we do is we then try to emulate what we see because we think their flight is the best. Who said their flight is the best? Now, if you sitting there and admiring something, in all truth, the longer you look at something, the longer you appreciate something. Not appreciate, but the longer you take something, as in visually take it in, you will find things about it that you love. The more attention you give to something, that's ultimately where your heart will end up going. If you spend a lot of time with something, it's inevitable. You're going to find something that you love. Okay. So if you sitting there paying so much attention to what somebody else is doing, you're going to find something about it that you end up loving. And on the flip side of that, you're now literally pushing away the things that make you you, because now you're looking at what someone else is doing and you're like, man, I like how they doing it. Maybe I should do it like that too. Only because you see that it's working. And I put it in air quotes, you see that it's working because you really don't know that it's working. But from your perspective, it looks perfect. It looks perfect. And why? Because it's what you're not doing. It's what you're not doing. In my many years of life, I am learning every single day that I don't know a whole lot. I'm learning that every single day. Now, in me learning that, I've also just come to grips and come to the understanding of this life is so much bigger than me. This life is so much bigger than you and I. But my question is, and where I kind of find myself is like, why can't we just accept what God put in us to do? Like, why is it that the things that we know, the gifts that we have, the flight plan that we have for our lives and the way things are moving, why is it that it almost feels natural to push it away because it doesn't seem acceptable? It doesn't seem like that's what everybody else likes or that's what everybody else is doing. And instead of us just moving in what it is that God gave us to do, we look to see who else would do it the same way we do it. And if they aren't, then we ultimately try to change our own course because we want to make sure it's accepted. I remember I had a person that I used to date. I had an ex-girlfriend years ago. And she asked me, I remember, and really I'll never forget, but she asked me, at the time I was like, you cannot tell me I'm a music producer. One, I make beats. I do a lot of stuff, but either way, at the time I was really making beats, really producing, really serious about the craft. And she asked me, she said, well, what's your 5-year plan? I think at the time I might have been like maybe 20. Yeah, I think probably like 20, maybe 21, maybe. And she asked me, she was like, what's your 5-year plan? I was like, I'm making beats. She was like, I mean, I get that, but like in 5 years, what do you see yourself doing? I said, I see myself having placements. I see myself working with such and such artists. I see myself really just doing it. Like, that's really what I saw. You cannot tell me otherwise. And she was like, no, I get that, but realistically. I was like, girl, what you mean realistically? Like, I'm being for real. I am being realistic. At 20-something years old, I believe I was 20. At 20 years old, realistically, I'm going to be a music producer. That's what I'm going to do. Now, if it ended up changing along the way, let me find that out. But at the time, at 20 years old, I'm going to figure this out. And eventually we weren't dating anymore. It wasn't because of that, it's because of some other stuff. It was just more of we were growing separately. But the reason why I brought that up is because when it comes to the flight plan, there's some things that some of you have on the inside of you that the thought of it is super overwhelming. It's overwhelming because it don't make sense. It don't make sense. It's like, how am I going to do that? Like, how? Me, who I am. How am I supposed to do this? But we count ourselves out rather than taking the opportunity to count on the one that gave us the plan in the first place. Now, I'm a believer. I love God. It is what it is. I have a real relationship with God. So everything that I do is centered around my relationship, around my belief with my Father, with Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is centered around that. So when it comes to the overwhelming feeling, I've been learning over just even to be truthful, even over the past few years, I've been learning that the more overwhelming my flight plan feels is simply due to the fact that I think that I'm responsible for flying. I think that it's my job to figure it out. I think that it's my job to have it all planned out. I think that it's my job, and I assume the role and the responsibility of designing my flight plan, of having every single thing checked off, like knowing how everything is supposed to be. I take that as my responsibility, and then I become overwhelmed because the reality is I don't know that much. I don't. I don't know what the weather's like when you get up 20,000 feet in the air. I don't know what the weather's like. I don't know what the air feel like. I don't know. What I do know is I got a God that, I have a God that I can depend on, a Father that I can trust. Someone, why do I keep burping? I'm so sorry, y'all. If y'all hearing this, please forgive me, Lord. Anyway, I have a Father that I can depend on. I have someone that I can rely on. I have someone I can put my trust in, someone that I can hope and place my hope in. And it gives me peace knowing that if I can trust him, if he's the one that's giving me this plan, I should be able to let the control go and know that he at least can figure it out. And if anything, he in there with me. He flying with me. So I'm not by myself. And the only thing that I need to do is to trust God, trust that he got me, and put one foot behind the other and keep moving. Put one foot behind the other and keep moving. So with all that being said, and I pray y'all following me. Like I said, these are like literally my thoughts. I wrote some things down, but as I was kind of coming together, I was like, Lord, just flow. I don't want to hold anything back, just flow. So that's what we're doing. So I really pray that y'all getting something out of this. I pray it's not sounding crazy. I really do. But we're gonna keep it moving. But I want to read this scripture, which as I was kind of looking and preparing like this episode, as I was like, all right, Lord, what you want me to talk about? What's episode 2 going to be about? And he gave me the title of You Got to Accept Your Flight Plan. And he led me to the scripture, which is Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 2. And I'm going to read it from the Amplified version. And it simply reads this. It says, looking away from all that will distract to Jesus, who is the leader and the source of our faith, given the first incentive for our belief, and is also its finisher, bringing it into maturity and perfection. He, for the joy of obtaining the prize that was set before him, endured the cross, despising and ignoring the shame, and is now seated at the right hand of the throne of God. So I'm going to read that from the King James Version. Where we at? 2. Okay. So it says, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. I'm going to pause right there. It says, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. Jesus is the author and finisher of our faith, and we need to look unto him. Now, if you read the Bible, this ain't about to be no Bible study. Let me just read this real quick. In verse 1, let me go back because we started in verse 2 begins in the middle of a statement. Verse 1 says, wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which does so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us. Let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. Let us run with patience the race that is set before us. That's literally what everything that is coming together of what I'm saying. Accept your flight plan. Run with patience the race that is set before you. Run with patience the race that is set before you. Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. Run the race that's set before you and keep your eyes on Jesus. He's the author and the finisher of your faith. When it comes to this flight plan, Jesus is the author and the finisher of your faith. Now, when it comes to faith, I don't know where all y'all are. I don't know what everybody believes. Like I said, I believe in Jesus. It is what it is. And you listening to this podcast, you're part of the flight crew, you're going to get you some Jesus. He all up in everything that I do. You'll feel me. So, but let us run the race that's set before us. Don't despise the race that you have, because the race that you have is your race. Nobody else can run it. So let us run the race that's set before us. Let us run the race that's set before us. This flight plan that you have, the plan that's already been set before you, Jesus is not only the author, but he's also the finisher of that plan. So run that race. Why? Because you get to. The reality is there's not another person in this world that can run the race that you're designed to run. Not one person. You're literally the only person on this earth that can run the race that you're running. But when you diminish the race by comparing it to somebody else's race, you slapping Jesus in the face, because he literally took time to craft out this race that was just for you. So why would you push it to the side because it does not feel like somebody else's? Here's the reality. It's not somebody else's. Your race is no one else's. Your race is your race. So let us run this race. Learn to accept the flight plan as yours. Because where you're headed, only you can go there. Only you can go there. And the beauty is there's so many people that's waiting for you to arrive. But the more you pay attention to everybody else, what they doing, how they doing it, what's on the other side of the fence, and you don't tend to what's on your side of the fence, then everybody that's assigned to you reaching that destination, they're left looking to see who's gonna finish the race. So will it be you? I know this for sure. One thing for certain, two things for sure. I'm gonna finish this race. I'm done with the days of continuing to doubt, because the thing is, y'all will learn this about me. But again, because I'm going to be very transparent and very honest through these, I tell you the truth. The level of doubt that I would have in the different things that I would do, that I would second guess and overthink everything. I wouldn't necessarily compare myself to other people in the way of, oh, well, they're doing this, so let me do them. I didn't want to run anybody else's race. I didn't. My issue was I was overthinking the race that I was running. And instead of me just taking it one step at a time, it's almost like perfectionism was trying to come in. Because it wasn't perfect, and I was second guess, and then because it didn't start this way, or because it didn't seem to go this way, I would doubt, and then more excuses would come, and then eventually I would sit back and I say, how come I'm not running the race? How come I'm not flying? I'm supposed to be further off. This is supposed to be happening. That's supposed to be happening. But the reality was that I was not getting in the race. I was not getting in the race. I was having a conversation with my wife, and I was telling her that for I don't even know how long, but I just kept having this vision of Jonah. And this is the last thing because I'm really about out of time. But I kept having these kind of bring you to my remembrance about Jonah and the whale. So Jonah, to give you the simple and sweet, Jonah, God told Jonah to go to Nineveh. And he told him, he gave him specific instructions of what he needed to do. And Jonah was like, bro, I ain't about to go to Nineveh. I'm not going. Get somebody else to do it. So Jonah actually was pretty much running away from God. And then him running away from God, he ended up really costing a lot of people pain because he would not run the race that was set before him. And if he would have just got in position, so many people would not have had to go through the things that they went through. So all in all, ended up happening. And Jonah realized, all right, I'm the cause of all of this. And he gave instructions to he was on a boat. He gave instructions to the crew on the boat. Hey, throw me overboard because I'm the problem. They threw him overboard. He got swallowed up by a whale, and you can read the rest. But the whole point is, and me bringing that up is, what are you running away from? Like I said, these are my notes to myself. So, Sylvester and Bakah, what are you running away from? Really? What have you been running away from? And I want you to ask yourself this and be honest, because there's nobody else in the room. It's just you. What are you running away from? What are you so afraid to do that you just keep abandoning the flight plan? That you keep running away, you keep retreating, you keep trying to find excuses as to why you can't. You're trying to find every reason to make it make sense as to why you can't do the thing that you're designed to do. You're designed to do it. So why can't it be you? Think about that. That's my question. And when you get the answer, because we know the answer, you're scared. You scared. That's why you're trying to find an excuse, because you scared, you stubborn, and you lazy. You don't want to do it. You really don't want to do nothing, but you got to do something, because as long as you got breath in your body, you got to move. So what is it going to be? Is you going to move? Is you or is you ain't? So accept your flight plan, because you got places to go. That's my time. That's my time. I pray you got something out of this. And if you did, man, leave a comment. Leave a comment. Send me a DM or something. Let me know what you got out of this. And I pray that it helps you. I pray that it ministered to you. It encouraged you. It did whatever it needed to do for you. So all in all, man, I appreciate y'all. I appreciate you for listening to me put my thoughts out on this podcast. And we're going to keep it pushing, and we're only going to keep going up, because I'm getting off that runway. Ain't nobody got time to be sitting there running around this on this runway like I ain't got air to fly in. I do. And it's time to fly. Well, that's it. It's episode 2. I appreciate y'all. Y'all have a great one. Y'all be blessed. And stay tuned for the next episode.